Hello guys! It is quite obvious that every dictator goes through different stages in his regime, just like a disease. It may start even with the democratic elections, but then as this dictator grows, he surrounds himself only with people who always agree and support his ideas, imprisoning others. And finally, he reaches the terminal stage when he believes that every decision he makes, every thought he shares is genius and he controls everything. There is literally no other person that can substitute him or think better in advance. Putin is actually on this terminal stage of his dictatorship. And that is why he did not notice how he himself became the author of the greatest geopolitical catastrophe for Russia. I am speaking about Syria, and it may seem that it's a minor problem for Putin, especially from the Ukrainian perspective. They will substitute these military bases elsewhere, Assad is in Moscow, what's the problem? When in reality, apart from humiliation, it is Putin's loss of influence in the region from the economic perspective too. Because now Syria is open for new pipelines for gas and oil coming from Qatar, Iraq and other countries of the region. Cheaper oil and gas for Europe. Erdogan feels himself very strong and is ready to become another favorite authoritarian leader for other countries in the European Union, more predictable and potentially adequate than Putin. So actually, the loss of control over Syria is the start of the changing world order, but not according to the Putin's plan. And let's discuss that in details. My name is Anna, I'm from Ukraine, I'm in Ukraine, and if you want to see the collapse of the Kremlin, subscribe. And subscribe to protect yourself against evil Kremlin narratives that they use to cause troubles in your countries too. So, Assad is in Moscow, Syria is under the control of various rebel groups, and many things will change. Of course, every revolution is quite unpredictable, but there are some very important conclusions that we can make already. Number one, according to the official reports, the day before Assad fled Syria, Russian representatives had a meeting with the Turkish representatives in Doha. And there, Russians were begging Erdogan to allow them to leave military bases without any losses. They literally asked for time to escape and get away from Syria. This is a very vivid illustration what happens to the greatest Russia with nuclear Oreshnik when they feel power from the other side. And they had to escape like, I don't know what animal can I choose for that, very quickly without any objections and with gratitude that they were allowed to run away alive. And actually, this illustrates the growing power of Erdogan in the region and in this concrete case, his wisdom of how to overplay Putin. But we have to be realistic. It was not that much the strategy of Erdogan as the stupidity of the Russian dictator who started to believe that BS that people around him kept repeating. He started believing that he is the greatest geopolitical leader. I don't know if you've heard about that, but at the end of his life, Stalin started writing books on linguistics. And it might be a sign that Putin has also reached this terminal stage of his dictatorship. Subscribe to demonstrate solidarity with Ukraine and to protect yourself against dictators. So Erdogan is becoming more influential. He, of course, recently commented that Putin is an experienced leader, but we need to look at his actions. And as soon as he got the opportunity to throw away Russians from Syria, he did that. Please remember the moment when Russian aircraft accidentally, and I think in this case truly accidentally, crossed the border of Turkey in the air. It was shot down in seconds. Putin understands only this kind of responses, and that is why, fleeing from Syria, leaving important military bases, he was grateful to Erdogan for this opportunity. And I want Russian troops to escape from Ukraine in a similar way. And another very important thing, apart from this influence, political image, military bases, is of course new opportunities that are open for different countries and different companies on the development of gas pipelines, better, more comfortable than the forgotten Nord Stream, for oil and gas from Qatar, from Iraq, from Syria. And this oil will be cheaper, same as gas, for the EU countries. And of course, they will start buying it from that way. Because if this war has taught something, it has definitely taught the EU leaders they don't want to be dependent on the Russian resources. So all over Russian TV, one of the greatest problems is actually the loss of control over Syria and the possibility of new pipelines built there. And preparing for this video, I watched a number of programs that Russians repeated before the backup of Assad regime, like a decade ago. And many Russians did not understand, why do we help Syrian Assad? Why do we need that? And those Russian economists were actually saying, we are doing it to back up our economy and our gas supply, our trade relations with Europe, but not anymore. And I think that this weakness of Putin is all over in the air because the newly elected President Trump changed his wording. I know he's a very emotional person and he says different things, but he changed his rhetorics when he said, not all of Ukraine is demolished, this beautiful church is destroyed, nothing left. It was his commonly repeated phrase during the elections process that I did not like, obviously. But he actually said that Putin lost 700,000 men, and only this fact already illustrates, and these are words of Trump, that Putin has lost. So he also humiliated Russian dictator with these words. And Trump definitely knows a lot about oil prices and their influence on the Russian economy. And in these dimensions, they can never be allies. I know, despite all this pessimism and optimism, depending on who's looking, there is no way, guys, that Russia and the United States can be friends, no matter who is the president, because these two countries, thank God, live according to very different values. In Russia, they don't care about human lives. And in the United States, the protection of the life of a person goes number one. At least that's what I hear and see from Ukraine. So we observe this tremendous geopolitical shift that may seem quite accidental, but in reality are the result of many steps. And the majority of these steps were wrong steps of Putin. Please share these videos to irritate supporters of the collapsing Kremlin. It works really well. And you know, many people expect these black swans, unpredictable situations based on actually totally predictable things. And the loss of control in Syria, the escape of Assad, the humiliation of Putin, and actually how quickly other leaders substitute this temporarily empty space illustrates that indeed, in this 21st century, at this moment, the world order is changing, just as Putin kept repeating. But it changes not according to the Russian dictator's will. Because once again, it always happens with them. They keep surrounding themselves with people who repeat their phrases, glorify their wisdom. They believe they are the greatest geopolitical strategists, prophets, when in reality, Putin remained very narrow-minded, very aggressive, very perhaps self-hating KGB agent. Please see him that way. That is the reality of Russia and its leader. Join me on Instagram, X, Threads, Discord and Blue Skies to get more updates, and I share a lot of other important thoughts on these social media platforms. Thank you for buying me coffees, becoming my patrons and sponsors of the channel. Please check our merch shop for lots of good items that work well as reminders and conversation starters about Ukraine. But most importantly, thank you for standing with us against this evil. And sometime soon we will discuss the escape of another dictator, this time from Moscow to hell. And that will be Putin. Slava Ukraini!